For joining today. My name is Mina Mizutani, and I'm the Assistant Director of JD Admissions for LMU Loyola Law School. This presentation today will essentially give you an overview of the application process. Each component of the application process will be broken down in this presentation, and then I'll also just be giving a broader overview of the programs that Loyola has to offer. If you have any questions, there will be a Q&A at the end of my presentation, so feel free to save your questions for the end. You could also put them in the chat if you would like. Oh, give me one moment. Someone is interested in the LLM MLS breakout room, so give me 1 second to assign. Okay. If anyone else is interested in the MLS or LLM programs, please let me know, and I'd be happy to put you in that separate room as well. But as I was saying, it's essentially just going to give you an overview of the application and then an overview of the programs that we offer at Loyola as well. So first, I just want to touch on our mission and values. To start, we seek to achieve and maintain excellence in the instruction of law. So our faculty are a really critical piece of Loyola, and our current students can absolutely vouch for that. So after this presentation, we're actually going to have a panel. I'll be moderating it, but current students are going to come in and speak about their experience at Loyola. So if you have any questions about their relationships with the faculty, any classes specifically, feel free to ask then. But our faculty really do care about you not only as a student, but also as a person, and they are truly leaders in each of their designated legal fields. We also have a deep concern for social justice. So social justice is really a cornerstone of our entire mission at Loyola. And I think that's shown in all of the programming and work that we do in the local community. So I'll be talking a little bit more about that later. And then going along with that concern for social justice, we do have a longstanding commitment to diversity, non-discrimination, and equal opportunity as well. And so again, I think in the later slides, you'll be able to have a clearer picture of just exactly how we exemplify that and the opportunities that are afforded to our students regarding how we're involved in the local community. So Loyola Law School is many, many things. Obviously, there's a lot of words on this slide, but I would just like to highlight a few of them. So first, our alumni network is a really central piece to everything that Loyola has to offer. So our alumni are very, very involved in the lives of our current students. They want to help you and they want to be involved in that way. We actually have a 1L mentoring program, for example, where if you would like, we match you with an alum from Loyola, specifically working in your area of interest or your concentration. And they're essentially there for you to ask or to answer any questions that you have, whether that's which classes to take, any study recommendations, things like that. And then generally speaking, we have alumni in all 50 states as well as 35 countries. So our network really is very, very vast, and that's something that our students absolutely capitalize on. Alumni are also very involved with our students in terms of obtaining employment after you graduate. And so they're a really, really great resource for you. Another word or words that might stand out is our live client clinics. So I'll be talking a little bit more about this later, but we do have over 20 live client clinics directly on campus, and that's where you would be able to work on real cases alongside our wonderful faculty members and the directors of those clinics. Every spring semester, we do have our experiential learning fair, and that's where the directors and representatives from all these clinics come out, and you're able to talk to them about exactly the work that they do, and then from there you would apply to get involved in those clinics. And then I'd also like to highlight pro bono, which is another thing I'll be talking about later. But we were the first law school in the state of California to have a mandatory pro bono requirement. And then you might see it's a little bit smaller, but the word bar track. So we do have an 87% first time bar pass rate, which is extremely high and something that we're very proud of. Um, Particularly because the California bar is notorious for being challenging. And so we do have bar track courses that specifically prep you for the California bar. And this does not take away from any of your concentration classes. And so that's something that's kind of built in and is an option for you at Loyola specifically. So now I just want to go over our programs a little bit. So this is the JD presentation, and it is our largest program. So each year we bring in around 280 full-time day students. This past year we enrolled 279 full-time day students and 47 part-time hybrid evening students. So for the full-time day program, we break you up into 4 different sections during your 1L year, and you take all of your 1L courses with that same section. So in terms of class size for your 1L year, it'll be around 70 students in your class. We found that it makes it easier for people to make friends that way. And then in your 2L, 3L years, that's when your class sizes will naturally get smaller as you delve deeper into electives and concentrations. And then our part-time hybrid evening cohort is its own cohort of 47. Every year we bring in around 50. Um, and this part-time hybrid evening program is specifically designed if you do want to work full-time while pursuing your JD or just have outside personal obligations that take up a good chunk of your time. It's very flexible, so you only have class 2 nights per week. 1 night per week would be on campus. Historically, it's been Monday nights. And then the other night per week would be virtual, so that's where the hybrid component comes in. And then we do offer 2 dual degree programs. So we do have the JD MBA program, which is a 4-year joint program, and then our JD Tax LLM program, which is a 3-year joint program. Um, Regardless of the dual degree program that you're interested in, you would have to complete your 1L year in the JD first in order to apply to either of these programs. So definitely focus on applying to the JD first, and then after your 1L year, that's when you can consider applying to the MBA or tax LLM. And then we do have our MLS, Master of Legal Studies, or LLM programs as well, which, as you know, is in a separate breakout room currently. So I'll be focusing on the JD. I also want to touch on our academics that we have to offer. So we do have these 11 concentrations. Overall, I would say we're probably most known for our entertainment concentration, but I believe civil litigation and advocacy is our largest. And then criminal justice, immigrant advocacy, and public interest, I would say, are all very popular as well. We also have these 4 courses of study, including family law, healthcare law, environmental law, and then law in the political process. So the courses of study are essentially just less formal versions of a concentration. So we still have multiple courses in all of these areas too. I'd also like to note that our concentrations are very, very flexible for you. And so you don't necessarily have to even pick a specific concentration. Many of our students don't end up picking a concentration. But if it really allows you to explore different areas, if you are interested in taking classes in different areas of law, you're more than welcome to do so. And then we also have 3 nationally recognized law reviews: our Loyola Law Review, Entertainment Law Review, and our International Comparative Law Review. And so you can get involved in these after your 1L year. And then we also have very competitive competition teams, including our moot court teams and then our burn trial ad team. I want to say out of the last 30 or so competitions, we have won around 20 of them. And so our moot court and trial ad teams are very, very competitive and well known. We do compete regionally, nationally, and sometimes internationally. And so that's another thing that you can get involved in after your 1L year. So we were founded on experiential learning, and this is where I'll talk a little bit more about the pro bono requirement in clinics. But as I mentioned before, we were the first law school in the state of California to have a mandatory 40-hour pro bono requirement. So this means that every student is required to have at least 40 hours of pro bono work completed in order to graduate. Many of our students complete it in just one semester, and lots of our students far exceed that requirement. And so every year we donate over 60,000 hours of pro bono work to the local community. We also have over 20 live client clinics to get involved in, as I mentioned before. Our most popular ones include our Project for the Innocent, our Loyola Immigrant Justice Clinic, and our Center for Juvenile Law and Policy. I would say our most nationally recognized one is our Project for the Innocent. Over the years, our students have helped to exonerate 17 wrongfully convicted clients of crimes that they did not commit. And a lot of the times, the clients that you're working with, specifically for our Project for the Innocent, have been wrongfully imprisoned for upwards of 20 to 30 years. So you really do make a difference directly in the local community. And any hours that you put towards any of these clinics would count towards that pro bono requirement. And then our practical and field placement opportunities are also something that I'd like to highlight just because we do have a specific field placement office that works with you after your 1L year. So if you would like to engage in an externship, either on or off campus for academic credit the summer after your 1L year, so the summer between your 1L and 2L year, that's when you would work with the field placement office specifically, and they'd be able to help match you with one of those placements. We do have partnerships with specific entertainment law firms, public interest law firms, and then nonprofits as well. And so there's lots of opportunities for you in that area and in working with that office specifically. So now I'm going to go over the application process. These are just some of the more commonly asked questions. So hopefully I'll be answering those throughout the rest of the presentation. But of course, if you have any questions that come up, feel free to put them in the chat, or you can raise your hand and ask it at the end of this presentation during the Q&A. So first I want to briefly go over the application file as a broad overview, and then I'll be going over each of these components more specifically. So essentially the CAS report, we think of it as the quantitative section of your application. This includes your LSAT score or scores if you've taken it multiple times, your transcripts, and then your letters of recommendation. You might notice that we also accept the GRE, but if you do choose to submit your GRE scores for consideration instead of an LSAT score, then the GRE scores would be sent separately directly through ETS, and your GRE scores would not be included in your CAS report. I'd also like to note that if you do decide to move forward with submitting an LSAT score or taking an LSAT score, an LSAT, then essentially that is what we'll move forward with. And so just note that in case you're kind of deciding whether to take the LSAT or the GRE, the vast majority of our applicants do submit an LSAT. And once you do have an LSAT score on file, that's what the committee will use in moving forward with your application. The application packet is what we think of as the qualitative section to your application. So that includes your personal statement, any optional statements, and then your resume, addenda, and any character and fitness disclosures, which I'll be talking more about later. So for early decision, you might be aware of this as you went through the undergraduate application process, but the early decision application for Loyola is binding. Essentially, this is for people who absolutely know that Loyola is their first choice, essentially meaning that if you are admitted to Loyola, then you would absolutely attend. An agreement is required since it is a binding decision, but the deadline for the early decision application is December 1st. And then you do receive priority consideration for scholarship, and the deposit deadline is in mid-January. So if you do decide to apply early decision by December 1st, you are guaranteed a decision back before the end of December. So you would know a lot earlier than applying regular decision, for example. So now I'd like to go over the LSAT. So you can either take it at home or at a testing center. Um, During COVID and then past the pandemic as well, they have kept the ability to take it remotely at home if you would like to. September, October, November, January, February, and April are the options for taking the LSAT. April is the last LSAT date that we accept for the full time day program. And then we do accept the June LSAT, but only for the hybrid evening program. So that's something to note if you are interested in one or the other. There is a cancel option as well. And so essentially, you would be able to preview your score and see what you got. And if you aren't happy with that score, then you do have the ability to cancel it. There is a fee, but we would not be able to see that score. It would just show up as a cancellation on your CAS report. And in Loyola's review process, having one cancellation on your CAS report is not a red flag to us. Um, if you do decide to cancel more than once, then that's where we would ask you to submit an LSAT addendum, which I'll be going more into a little bit later. But just be mindful of that. And then there are testing limits. So canceled scores do count against your testing limits, and you are able to take it 5 times within the current and past 5 years, and then 7 attempts in a lifetime. We always like to tell our prospective students that you shouldn't plan on taking the LSAT multiple times. So, of course, go into the first attempt well prepared. And in the right mindset to try to think of it like this is hopefully going to be my one and only time. If I have to, and then if, of course, if you have to take it again, or if you would like to raise your score, then you can. Um, but the more limited number of times that you attempt to take it is better because it shows that you were well prepared the first time, for example. There is an argumentative writing section as well, and this is mandatory. So your CAS report is not released until this argumentative writing section is completed. It does open in advance of the LSAT. I believe it's 8 days before your LSAT exam test date. And so you are able to take it on your own time, but this is another piece of the application that the committee does consider. And it does show your writing skills in a more high pressure environment rather than just a personal statement, for example. So now just to touch on transcripts, we do look at your undergraduate cumulative GPA, which is reported directly on your CAS report. Naturally, your transcripts would show any grade trends, and then graduate transcripts are accepted, but the mandatory transcripts are your undergraduate transcripts, and then any transfer coursework you've taken. So any community college work, anything like that, that's where we would also want to see that as long as it did contribute to your undergraduate degree. So now to touch on letters of recommendation, only one letter is technically required, but we do accept up to two. Um, of course, academic or professional letters are preferred, especially if you've been out of school for more years. Then professional letters are absolutely acceptable. Um, we want to highlight that you should evaluate the quality of your relationship with the person that you're asking to be your recommender rather than the title. So, for example, if you know a really noteworthy judge, but they haven't worked with you personally and can't really speak to your abilities and what you would bring as a law student, then that's probably not the best option. Definitely focus more on the quality of the relationship that you have with your recommender. And of course, don't ask family, friends, relatives. This might seem obvious, but every year we do receive letters of recommendation from family, friends, people who have known you your entire life. And naturally, that just unfortunately doesn't carry as much weight as an academic or professional letter would. So next, I want to go over the application packet. So essentially, this is the qualitative portion of the application that I had mentioned earlier. Um, it's also known as the application form or what we call it in our office as the e-app, which is the electronic application. If you apply before December 31st, then your application fee is automatically waived. So it is an incentive to apply earlier rather than later. In your application form, this is where you would indicate whether you're interested in the day program, evening program, or both. So a common question I get asked is if you have to submit two separate applications if you do want to be considered for both programs. The answer is no. You would only submit one application, and then there's just a question that asks how you would rank your preference. So, for example, if you want to be considered for the full-time program as the priority, but then the evening as a second choice, then that's where you would list it in that same question. You would also note if you're a reapplicant or a new applicant. And then this is also where you would note if you're applying early decision or regular decision. And then it also asks the character and fitness questions regarding any convictions, probation, disciplinary, etc. So now to go over the personal statement, this is really your chance to kind of talk to us directly. We like to tell you to think of your personal statement kind of like an interview. Interviews are not part of the regular application process for us, and so this is where we hear directly from you. Definitely tell your story in your voice and be authentic and genuine. And there really is no specific thing that the committee is looking for in the personal statement. We just want you to tell us your story, naturally talk about what has led you to pursue law school. So whether that's a specific event in your life, a work experience, etc. Definitely just be genuine and authentic to who you are. And then naturally check your grammar. It's always smart to have someone else kind of proofread your personal statement just for any grammar issues, and just be mindful of your tone in your personal statement as well. Obviously, don't use what you see online. Don't use ChatGPT. Also, don't restate your resume. Of course, if you want to delve deeper into a specific work experience you've had, then you absolutely can in your personal statement. That's more than acceptable. But just don't list all the experiences, for example, that are on your resume. And then don't complain or offer too many excuses. Again, I had mentioned just be mindful of your tone. And then a couple other notes that I'd like to mention: try not to be lawyerly. So don't use legal jargon if that's not how you naturally speak. I would say use humor cautiously, and then also use quotes sparingly. So naturally, if there is a quote that really is your motivation or central to your story, then of course feel free to use it, but just use quotes sparingly as it tends to take away from your voice in this personal statement. So now I want to touch on some optional statements. So we do have a background and identity statement as well as a Loyola interest statement. Both of these have a slightly more specific guidelines in the electronic application, but they are pretty open-ended. A common question I get is how do I evaluate if the optional statement is necessary or effective? And the answer to that is ask yourself if it's offering new information. So for example, I've seen statements come in where their background or identity statement is essentially the same as their personal statement and it doesn't offer any new information. That's where you would want to change your background and identity statement, or even just delve deeper into something that you might have mentioned in your personal statement. Just make sure that it is giving the committee additional information that's not included in other pieces of your file. And then the Loyola interest statement is really great because that's where you can really flesh out your interest in Loyola specifically, any concentrations, clinics you might be interested in. And that's something that the committee does look for just to make sure that you've done your research into Loyola specifically, because that is important. We want to see why you are applying to our school, and just want to make sure that you've done your research into it. Now to touch on the resume and addenda. So the resume is technically optional, but highly recommended, especially if you have more years of work experience. The resume is a really great place where the committee can see all of your work experience outlined. And then it should be 1 to 2 pages in length with a standard resume format. And then for your academic or score addenda, so we do accept GPA and LSAT addendum. They are optional, and it is kind of up to your discretion. So if you do choose to submit an academic or score addendum, just keep in mind that keeping it brief is best, and of course, don't make any excuses. Rather, just be mindful of your tone and make sure you're explaining the situation rather than making any excuses, for example. Something that I'd like to note is that if you have had multiple score cancellations for the LSAT, as I mentioned earlier, that's where you would want to submit an LSAT addendum. And then if you do take the LSAT multiple times, if you score plus or minus 4 points outside of that score band, based on your original score, then that's another area where the committee likes to see an LSAT addendum just to explain either what happened or how you've increased your score by that many points. I would also say it does show your judgment. So, for example, if you took the LSAT once and it's above our median, then that's something where you would not um, want to submit an LSAT addendum because if it's already above our median, then it kind of makes us question like, why are you trying to explain why you got this score when it's already above the 50th percentile for us? Um, and then a GPA addendum would be really great to use if there are grade fluctuations in your transcript, or if your undergraduate cumulative GPA just isn't as good as you would want it to be. That's where it's really important to kind of explain to the committee and give additional context as to what happened. And that's something that the committee will absolutely take into consideration. So now, does anyone have any questions about the application specifically, before we start the panel? Okay, if there aren't any application related questions right now, if anything does come up, feel free to email us at admissions@lls.edu and we'd be happy to assist. Um, Now I would like to begin the panel with all of my wonderful current students from Loyola Law School. So let me just stop sharing my screen. Um, and so this would be a great time if any of you have any questions that are specific to the current student experience, you can start putting them in the chat, or feel free to raise your hand if you'd like to. But I'd like to start just by having my current Loyola students introduce themselves. And so if you want to say your name, which year you are, if you are in a concentration, and then anything that you're involved in on campus, that would be great. So I think we're all mixed up in different ways on our Zoom screen. So I'll call on people if that's okay. So first on my screen is Jacob. Jacob, if you can introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Hi, I'm Jacob Castleman, LMU alumni, current 3L at LLS, and I was in the concentration for civil litigation.
Thank you. And then Victoria.
Hi, y'all. My name is Victoria Moss. I am a 3L day student. I'm the president of our Day Student Bar Association, which is like our student government. And I would also mention that I was a part of the Civil Rights Litigation Practicum, which is a bit different than like a clinic, but yeah.
Thanks, Victoria. Lauren.
Hi everyone, I'm Lauren. I'm a 2L day student. I'm not in a concentration, but I am in Loyola's JD and Tax LLM joint program, and I'm also involved in the Women's Law Association.
Wonderful. Thank you. And then last but not least, London.
Hi everyone, I'm London. I'm a 2L day student. I went to UC San Diego for undergrad. I am not in a concentration, but I'm taking classes kind of towards IP entertainment, and I'm the lead mentor coordinator for the Young Lawyers program, which is a really cool high school mentorship program we get to do through school. So
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Um, So just to get everyone started, if you can all answer what your favorite part about Loyola is, that would be great to get us going. So anyone feel free to just unmute or raise your hand, and feel free to popcorn around.
Yeah, I can go first. I think the best part of LLS is the community. I think it's a really different community than I hear about from other law schools. Uh, there's always the word on the street that a lot of law schools can be very competitive, but I think at LS everyone wants to like lift each other up and really help one another. It's like got a great social community. It's very like active and like you never see campus be like too dead during like the regular school week.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Lauren. I would definitely say the thing I always mention has for me has been the alumni. Like every single job I've gotten has been through a Loyola alum. Um, and I really just appreciate that the alum like really ride hard for us and really want to connect you. They show up to events, they want to connect you with other people, and get you a lot of get you resources, get you involved in things. So yeah, I think like coming into law school, like I don't nobody in my family's a lawyer, so I was a bit like worried, like how would I get involved in the community? And Loyola like completely set me up. So, and I would honestly like I owe all of that to just the alumni. So yeah.
I would say the community at Loyola, everyone's really nice and like it's not very competitive at all. And I was able to meet like some of my very close friends who I hang out with outside of school too. And there are a lot of opportunities available, especially like just being in downtown LA.
I hate to be another community ride or die person, but that was also my answer. I'll try to bring a little bit of a different perspective. I am also a first gen law student, and I was really scared. I knew nothing coming in. So finding so many unique, different personalities was really cool. Like all different majors, all different backgrounds. Everyone's super nice. Also, some of my professors have I've gotten like super close to. I feel really supported there. The alumni network is awesome as well. I also have found my jobs through them. So definitely the community.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Um, Another question that came in, someone's wondering if anyone could speak to their experience with the 1L mentorship program as a mentee slash mentor and how that shaped your experience at Loyola so far.
Can I ask for more specification? Is she referring because there's like technically a couple different ones. Like there's some that are like student to student, like 2Ls and 3Ls mentoring, but then there's also some where like alumni mentor, like 1L.
Yes. Yeah. So, if this person wants to specify, feel free to put it in the chat. During my presentation, I did highlight the alumni mentoring program. So either one, if any of you are involved in a student-to-student peer mentoring or with an alumni, feel free to share your experience.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk to both. I think the first was the alumni one. I had that during my 1L year. It was really cool being able to talk to someone who had like kind of already gone through the steps and like become successful. And then I know a lot of the student orgs on campus. I started a student org that mentored about 150 of the 300 1Ls this semester or this year. So, uh, it's really great being able to mentor like the incoming 1Ls and help you guys because a lot of law school, a lot of the difficulty of it comes from the things you don't know that just kind of aren't told to you. Uh, and so being able to talk to someone who like went through what you went through is like super helpful. It's super convenient. And I think even just on campus in general, once again, going back to the community, which seems to be like the center point here. but it's really like a community where like people get connected with one another and get help from each other.
I can also speak on both. I did the 1L, the one you sign up for before you even start school. I believe you're matched with alumni. And that was awesome. Honestly, I got so much out of it. I'm still in contact with her. She actually got me my current job. It's great. And I've met so many other people through her. And then through campus, during my 1L, I did like student on student mentorship, one through the Women in Entertainment Law Society and the other one through the Entertainment and Sports Law Society. And kind of what Jacob was saying, we didn't even talk too much about like academics. It was more just like, oh my gosh, like how do you handle this aspect of it or the workload? And I loved it so much that I now this year am mentoring through the same two societies. And I feel like meeting with those 1Ls has been super awesome. And they honestly have the same questions I did. Like, how do I go about day to day? How do I juggle studying and outside interests and hobbies and stuff? So I think everyone's here to help.
Similarly to London, I like also had the 1L mentor that was an alumni, and she is like how I mentioned before, she's the reason I got like my 1L. I worked with a judge and she like connected me with him. Um and she also was just somebody that I went to when I just like needed advice of like how do I do this? Um and she was just like a huge like motivator for me, and so I would like 100% recommend, like I think it's so important to like speak with people who have already gone through the process. It's just like good to kind of see the other end of it. And then of course, like um we have like a public interest org on campus, and my like mentor was match.org. She like helped me like pick, like I would email her like what professor do I pick. Um she would send me like all these resources, like outlines, things like that. So definitely, as everyone's already said, it's just like a complete like it's just everyone passing back information and wanting to definitely help one another out. So yeah.
I would echo that a lot. I don't think I signed up for that alumni program, but I remember as a 1L, I joined a lot of clubs, and a lot of these clubs offered mentorship with other students who are 2Ls or 3Ls. So I did this through Women's Law Association along with the First Gen Law Association, and it was really helpful because you meet like students who already have taken your classes. You can ask them for notes and outlines, and like if they have any professors they would recommend going into 2L. And as a 2L, you could also sign up to be a mentor to mentee new 1L students, and it's like a real full circle moment.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. Lauren, you mentioning the first gen resources is a great segue into the next question. Someone asked if we have a lot of first gen law students. If so, what are options for support that are offered? So this past year, we enrolled the new class, and out of the incoming class, 29% were first gen. And then I'll turn it over to all the current students for specific resources on campus for first gen students or just more generally as well.
Yeah, I guess I'll start. There's obviously the like Student Resource Center, which is run by Professor Gura, I believe. Very helpful resource on campus. Uh, Legal Education Access and Development org, that's very good. Lots of resources through that and back to the mentorship. Uh, Elsewise, teachers are really like the most helpful ones, especially like your legal writing teacher. I feel like everyone gets very close to them and they usually are very helpful and like full of advice and wisdom. I'm also first gen, and like I know it's kind of intimidating, but there are plenty of resources on campus to help you. And just know, even if someone isn't first gen, they're still going through it for the first time.
I would say my counselor also helped me a lot. At Loyola, you're assigned a counselor and they help you with like, your resume, your CV, and like helping you find job opportunities too. So I found that really helpful, and that's how I was able to find my summer job.
A lot of the people that I was talking about, like the alumni, as well as students that helped me out, were also first gen. So I think that that really helped me out. 1L. We also had, I don't know if they still have it for 1Ls, but during my first year, they used to have like these workshops on like how to write a law school exam, things like that I would go to just because I kind of felt like I was like, what am I doing? But yeah, I think I would, if I could do it all over again, I would totally take advantage of all those types of things, and everything that everyone else has mentioned.
I also want to acknowledge that Marin has joined us, who is another wonderful current student. So Marin, do you want to introduce yourself really quick? Just say which program you're in, what year you are, and then anything that you're involved in on campus.
I'd be happy to. Sorry, I was late. I'm traveling, and so I was a little late arriving and had to get
No
set up
worries.
here. But I am a second year evening student. Um, sorry, what's the questions again? Just introduce myself.
Okay. Yeah, essentially. Yeah, anything you're involved in on campus, or if you are pursuing a specific concentration, anything like that. But you can
Okay.
also give a little bit more context to, since you're an evening student, are you working full time? Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I am working full time. I work for a legal aid called California Rural Legal Assistance. I love the public interest area, although as I've started to go through law school, I find I'm really drawn to criminal law, which doesn't really sync very well with public interest because they usually try to put all of that on the public defender. So I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to end up. I love legal aid. I do criminal record expungements in the department that I'm in, so it's kind of criminal adjacent. I have a family and I have a daughter that's 10. My other kids are older. They've left the house. This is my sort of second career. I'm not having a midlife crisis. I'm having a midlife career. So kind of a non-traditional path, but I love Loyola and I love law school, and it's possible to do all the things. It's just a lot of juggling.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. You actually came at a perfect time, because one of the questions that I have, is how different are opportunities for evening students? This person currently works as a legal assistant and they'd love to stay employed through the program, but they worry about how hard the evening program school without, or how hard the JD schooling would be without strong support. So Marin, did you want to talk a little bit more about your experience? I also want to preface this by saying any opportunities that are available to the full-time day students are also offered to the part-time hybrid evening students. It's really just a matter of how you manage your time, if your employer is more flexible, to allow you to get more involved and things like that. But Marin, feel free to talk about your experience in terms of juggling everything.
So they do work hard to make sure that the evening students have opportunities, and it is a little bit of what you make it. You can choose how involved you want to be. When you are working full time and you have other stuff happening, it's hard to also be on campus every day. With the hybrid program, we only actually have to be on campus on Mondays, and then we have class from 6 to 10, and then Wednesdays is asynchronous, so it's over Zoom from 6 to 10, which works really well for me because I live up in Ventura, and so I'm commuting almost 2 hours each way. So I don't come down all the time, but I still have been able to get involved with, I've had a mentor through the public interest group. I have come to various events. There was just a criminal justice reform event that was really cool that I came down for. And really, you can get involved in anything you want. One of the benefits of the hybrid program, I think, is that we're a smaller cohort. There's only about 45 of us, and we've all gotten to be really tight. Like, I know everybody in the cohort. I've made a lot of really amazing friends. And if you want to socialize with people, you can. It's a great way to connect and network. And so overall, it's been a really good experience. I know maybe I won't have quite as many choices for electives, but I know that I'm going to get a solid legal education. So I'm not really worried. I'm not finished yet. I haven't gotten to pick very many electives, so I can't tell you the whole experience. But from what I've heard from other evening students, you definitely get a full legal experience.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Any other questions that anyone has for our current students, feel free to put in the chat. I will also open this up to everyone, but a question that I have is if you all could speak on like any advice that you would give a 1L student in terms of how you found the transition to law school to be, any tips and tricks. And any share your experience since you are all past your 1L year now, and you're more seasoned. Any study tips, scheduling tips, feel free.
I think that I think I have like two big ones. The first one is I think when you like start in law school, you're gonna be told a lot of like do this, do this, do this, do this by various people. You have to find what works best for you. I remember when I was a 1L, like first semester, trying to do everything that I was told to do and it not working out at all because everyone learns in a different way. So focus on like figuring out what works for you. Like if outlining doesn't work for you, don't do it. That kind of thing. Uh and then the second thing, and this is like kind of I guess an obvious one, try your best to just make friends. I know that sounds like yeah, just do it kind of thing, but your friends in law school really keep you grounded and keep you like enjoying the process. So like when I go to school like and I'm not really feeling, like being there much, the thing that's keeping me going to school is like, hey, I'm gonna see my friend. Boom, boom, boom. Like that.
Um, I was gonna say that I think a huge piece of advice that I got um when it came to like the summer before law school, I was like doing all this research when it came to like choosing where do I go, what do I need to do. Um, and I got like good advice that was kind of like over the summer, like just kind of prepare yourself, like do all the things that that you want to do, whether that's go somewhere. Um, by all means, like your life's not going to be over. I was like convinced I could never do anything fun ever again. But I mean, like, do all the things like go to the DMV, go to the doctor. Like, if you're moving, like, make sure you have like a good, comfortable space and kind of like establish where you're gonna be. Um, I think like something I had to learn during 1L was like sometimes you're just like not gonna get stuff, and that like was such a hard barrier for me to get through. Um, and so I would say like it's really important to set boundaries with like your schedule. Like just cut yourself off at like 10 p.m. even if you don't get it. Like it'll be fine. Um, but yeah, I think that like school should be like it's gonna be tough, but it should be like something you're working towards, something that my like alumni mentor told me during 1L was like this is the one thing in your life that nobody can ever take from you. And so like I always was kind of like this is the thing that I'm working towards rather than this is like my entire life and I can't do anything else. Um, but yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else, Marin?
I would just echo what both of them say. Definitely, you need to figure out what's going to work for you as far as studying goes, and you don't have to give up your whole life. But 1L is definitely a massive investment, and um, part of it is just the learning curve of figuring out how to study, and so once you get to 2L, it's not really that it's easier; it's just that you know how to do it better. And also, everyone that comes to law school is intelligent and good at school, and you're going to find yourself in a really small pond. And so you have to disengage from like getting too fixated on your grades because it can be make your experience a lot more negative if you do that. Um, as my legal writing professor said, you know what they call the person with the lowest grade in your class? An attorney. So you still get to be an attorney, even if you get all C's, which you probably won't. You're probably going to do way better than that and be amazing, but got to be a little bit graceful with yourself about grades. And it's really fun. It's really fun to learn about the law. It's really interesting. Loyola is a great environment that has a lot to offer. A lot of really interesting professors, a lot of great activities, and the staff is really supportive. Everybody's really there to help you. So it's hard, but you can do it.
Yeah, I would definitely echo that. Grades don't define you, and you can always go to office hours. All the professors host office hours like weekly, and it's a great opportunity to get to know them more and ask your specific questions.
Wonderful. Thank you. I think this is a really great segue. Speaking of professors and that support that you get from faculty, someone asked, is there a particular professor or class that is really popular at Loyola that you'd recommend? And then what made you pick Loyola for law school? Great question.
I think it's hard to say that there's a class that's like particularly pop because I feel like in most classes, like especially the bar ones, like they wind up getting full. Uh, I think that obviously anything that's in entertainment law that gets pretty popular pretty fast. Uh, I think that yeah, I mean I don't know. That's hard for me to answer. I really liked the employment law classes because that's like my specialty. So like I enjoyed like labor law with Professor Harris and employment law with Professor Bornstein. As far as like the second question was why LS, right?
Yes, yes. And that is a question that I would like everyone to answer since I think that is something that applies to everyone.
Yeah, so I think that the two main things that drew me to LS was one, I had already gone to LMU and loved it, and I felt a similar vibe on campus of just like a real connection between like teachers and students and just like a really like uplifting environment. And the second thing, and this is just like personal preference. Most law schools, you'll notice, like, as you tour them, are like a building on a bigger campus, whereas Loyola Law School is its own campus, like, separate from LMU, which means that you're like walking around throughout the day from class to class, as opposed to like just walking through one building.
Um, I was gonna say, I think Professor Yagura, I know she was already mentioned. I absolutely adore her. She's amazing. And for class that's popular or at least interesting, I'm in fashion law right now, and I didn't even know that was a thing until until it came up, and I'm loving it. It's very cool. There's a lot of really fun classes that you wouldn't expect. It's cool to have the opportunity to take them. And a lot of those are also actually in the evening, so you should all have the opportunity to take them. And for me, picking Loyola, originally I knew I wanted to stay in California. So I was just applying to California schools. And I was interested in entertainment. So that we also have a great entertainment program. And then kind of the same as Jacob. I remember I came to tour and also speak to admitted students, and that made a huge difference. But when I showed up, and it's really cool, like it is really cool. We have our own campus, people are outside all the time. I love walking around. Everyone's just sitting and chatting. It just felt very, I don't know, for me it was cool. I think this is actually my last tour I went on, to come to a place where I wasn't like, oh, who's an undergrad or like who's a law student, and just seeing everyone. And yeah, as cliche as it sounds, the vibes were really good.
Um, as far as professors go, Professor Mendoza like changed my life. I've taken multiple classes with her. I think she teaches critical race theory to 1Ls, and then she does a class on police and prison abolition that I loved. So that's a class I'd recommend. I've also taken a class on like police oversight, but that's like also really my niche. I would also recommend the Civil Rights Litigation Practicum with Gary Williams. Professor Williams is amazing. Um, I just think that like a part of like the reason that I chose Loyola is like a lot of what is offered at our school is far different from what I was noticing at other places. Like my second year, I took a course like the practicum that I'm speaking about, like where you the first semester you like learn about like civil rights and like strategies that they use, and then the second semester you get paired with a firm and the things you learn you're literally applying. Um, and so yeah, that's kind of part of the reason that I just felt like Loyola was very different. I also really wanted to like be and like live in LA and be in LA. I think it's really important to go to school and live somewhere where you're like where you get to enjoy and you're doing things um that like outside of law school to like look forward to. So that was a big thing for me.
I'm enrolled in marital property right now, and I find it so interesting because you're learning about divorces, prenups, and just like useful things to know, and like you can apply it to your own life later on. And I would say I picked Loyola because I connected with someone when I was at UCLA for undergrad, and she really, really enjoyed Loyola. She was telling me about how the community is really strong, the network is really strong there, and then we actually visited the school together. And like while she was showing me around, like I could really see myself going to school here, coming here every day, and that's how I made my decision.
Wonderful, thank you. Um, and then Marin, I'm not sure if you're in the middle of typing out a response to the person who specifically asked you a question. So I don't want to interrupt your typing if you are responding right now. But if you could just give um, like your favorite class that you've had in the evening program so far, and then what made you pick Loyola?
Okay. I will answer in the chat in just a second. I've really loved a lot of my classes. Professor Brain at like my one of my very first classes did contracts, and he was so amazing and supportive, and like even made getting called on randomly not that stressful, which can be pretty stressful. Um, and he like literally wrote the book on contracts, so that was pretty cool to have the person who wrote the textbook. I had a friend at LMU or at Arizona State University who was like, I'm reading this book by this guy named Professor Brain, and I was like, yes, that's my professor. So that was fun. We've just had a lot of good. I'm still in sort of like 1L classes. I haven't gotten to pick that many yet, but we had criminal law with Professor Sirota, and he had a really interesting class format where all the lectures were in asynchronous, and then the class time was like discussion. So that was super cool. Um, I don't think I've really had any that were terrible, so that's good. I liked pretty much all of them. And what was the second question? Sorry, I forgot already.
Oh, that's okay. Why you
Oh,
chose
why
Loyola?
Loyola? I wanted to stay in California because I do have a family here. I didn't want to uproot my family and haul them off to somewhere on the East Coast. So I was applying in California, and I liked the underlying values of Loyola. I like the fact that pro bono is such a big part of their practice, and that they were one of the first schools that had, maybe the first school that had a pro bono requirement. Um, and they have so many clinics because they do a lot of work for the community. Like they've done a lot of great stuff for the fire victims in LA, and I think that that's really great. And when I got on the campus, I think other people have talked about it, it just has a great feeling. It just feels good to be on the campus. It's very safe. You come in through the parking garage, and the campus is closed, so it's just other law students and professors and staff. And it's a pretty little campus, so I hope you all will visit it. Um, and actually, the person in the chat was asking about um, adjusting to the learning curve and how did I navigate and how did I balance, which is really getting your family on board is super critical. I would strongly recommend, whether you're a day student or an evening student, that you communicate with the people in your life that you're doing this. And for me, especially with my family, I was like, we need to do this together. I can't do this on my own because it's going to be such a big investment of time and effort and energy and money that I wanted them to, and they were. And that has been great. Um, and I think that's it.
Wonderful, thank you. Um, any other questions from any of my prospective students? Feel free to chat in. I don't want to keep everyone here if there aren't additional questions that people are wondering. Let me see. So this is something that I can answer from the admissions perspective, and then I'm not sure if our current students have um, any input as well for any like external or internal scholarships. But someone asked what kind of scholarship options are available. So, from the admissions standpoint, everyone who applies, whether you're a full-time or part-time student, you're automatically considered for merit-based scholarship. And naturally, the earlier that you apply, would be setting yourself up for a better chance for scholarship consideration because naturally later in the cycle, funding starts to dwindle a bit. And so that's why there is that incentive to apply earlier rather than later for scholarship consideration specifically, as well as a seat in the class. And then beyond the merit-based scholarships, the vast majority of our students do take out some type of federal loans as well. And so we do have a student financial services office. Their email is just studentfinancialservices@lls.edu. And they're there to help you with any questions regarding like the FAFSA process or anything related to that side of federal funding. Which I know isn't scholarship specific, but just in terms of broader knowledge in terms of how students are able to pursue law school from a financial standpoint. I do know that a lot of our students do take out loans as well. But everyone is automatically considered for those merit-based scholarships from an admissions standpoint. We also point people to Access Lex. They have a whole scholarship bank that essentially lists a ton of external scholarships that you can apply for. And so there's that option as well. I don't know if any of my current students are aware of any other scholarship opportunities that are available that I haven't mentioned. If not, that's totally fine. Um, yeah, any other questions from any of my prospective students? Well, I'll give another minute just to let people type if you do have any questions that you'd like answered from our wonderful panel here. I'll just ask one more question, which would be um any like last a minute. Sorry, I'm seeing all the thank yous coming in, which is wonderful. Thank you all to my panel. But any last piece of advice that you might give an incoming student, whether that's what to do or what not to do. I know people have kind of mentioned things here and there throughout the panel as well. But any final piece of advice you would like to share?
I think the best piece of advice I could give anyone going into law school is just know you're not alone. I talk to a lot of 1Ls, and the number one thing I hear from them is them being like, oh, everyone in my class is so smart. Everyone knows what's going on. Everyone's going to get an A, and I'm going to fail. But most people in your class don't know what's going on. And the truth is, like, you're not alone in how you feel. Like, I used to sit back and feel that way too. And then like started talking to people and I realized everyone's confused. Like it's not just you. And you should never feel like, oh, you're like, egocentrical, you're the only one who is feeling bad. Everyone feels bad at some point in law school. Like what's gonna make you a successful law student is taking the hits and getting back up and trying harder and in different unique ways.
I was actually going to say a very similar thing. That one of the things that I started doing very early on was being extremely candid with any of my classmates or friends that would listen. And sometimes it just takes one person to admit that it's hard. And then suddenly everyone's like, oh my gosh, well, I was feeling the same way. And they weren't going to say it. So I felt like being very candid with my peers and also my professors made me feel not so alone. And I think one of the worst things I did going into 1L was I like quit all of my activities, like my things that made me happy. Like for me that was like dancing, and I was like I quit all of that. I was like we're not doing that. I'm not going to have the time. And then sure enough, like halfway through the semester I was like, "Oh my gosh." And then I got back into it and suddenly everything else got better. So you don't have to sacrifice everything, whether that's even if it's a sport or a workout class, or knitting, I don't know, whatever it is for you, don't just like don't do what I did and like hard stop everything, because that's not it's not going to work. So you will have the time for what makes you happy. And I think it was Jacob that was saying, oh no, sorry, it was Victoria who was saying earlier, like set yourself on a schedule because law school could go forever and ever and ever, and you're gonna have to make the time to do the things that make you happy. You're not just gonna like suddenly have a free day, but you need to prioritize that. And to me, that made everything in my life better. 1L.
Any other thoughts, comments from my panel? If not, that's totally okay. Okay. Well, thank you all for joining today. I'd like to give one last thank you to these amazing current Loyola students for imparting all their knowledge and advice and experiences to you all. I am going to stay in the Zoom since I know technically we have another 45 minutes. And so I'll be here if any of you would like to chat one-on-one, whether that's about the application process or anything campus related. But you are all free to go. So thank you again to my current students and thank you all for joining. I hope you have a wonderful upcoming weekend.